What if I told you the number one quarterback of the 2026 class is from Greensboro? What if I told you NC State has one of his teammates on our roster? What if I told you NC State football is heavily pursuing this quarterback?
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. As I alluded to there, the number one high school quarterback in the country currently attends Grimsley High School in nearby Greensboro, North Carolina. Of course, I'm talking about Faizon Brandon from Greensboro, North Carolina. His former teammate, who is now on NC State's roster, is freshman wide receiver Terrell Anderson. I saw an article written by Pack Pride that Terrell Anderson is already starting to whisper sweet nothings into Brandon's ear about what the NC State Wolfpack could provide for his collegiate career. Kenton, how involved do you think NC State may actually be for the number one quarterback in the country?
Listen, there are many things that I say on this show that I'm like, oh, I've heard from sources, or I've heard from person X, Y, and Z about different things. But I'm going to tell you this. Faizon Brandon's camp is not one that I spoke to. I'm not going to lie and say, hey, I've talked to his people, but I have talked to some other recruits out there who said that winning a conference championship would go a long way to helping out NC State stock with them. And I can't imagine this will be too different of a situation. This is a young man coming out of Grimsley High School. That's a high school that has put together a very recent tradition of winning. It is not a shock. It's not a surprise to see that somebody like that will want to be a part of a tradition of winning. But more importantly, like you talked about, we already have one of his former teammates on the roster right now. And that's very important because we see how much those relationships play out. And even sometimes when you think it didn't pan out, it kind of circles back to pan out. Now, doesn't it, Noah Rogers? You know, that's the reality of what we're looking at here. And so to have a young man like this that is, again, at worst, every recruiting site that I see has him ranked between 1 and 4 in terms of top quarterbacks in the country. Doesn't matter how you shake it, doesn't matter how you slice it. If we have a shot at a guy that is that highly ranked at the most important position in all of football, you absolutely shoot that shot. You take that shot every day of the week.
Faizon Brandon stands 6'4". He's 195 pounds. And from everything I've read, he seems to be an elite pocket passer with dual threat athleticism, everything that you would want in a dual threat quarterback, essentially. He's fast, he's athletic, he has a rocket arm, great field vision, a lot of poise. He fits the part. And to be the number one high school quarterback in the country, his offer list is exactly how you think it is. It's the Alabama, the Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. Essentially, every single P4 school is on that list and includes NC State and the Dirty Foot Club. Now, being that he is in close proximity just down the road in Greensboro, and you do have one of his former teammates in Terrell Anderson, not only that, but Terrell Anderson is a wide receiver, so it's somebody that he would be throwing to potentially in the red and white. It's a big deal. And I think it kind of wraps into a larger conversation, and we hinted at this on Monday, being that NC State is already pretty heavily committed to CJ Bailey being the quarterback of the future in 2025. And then you have freshman Will Wilson coming in behind him. He'll be a freshman next year in 2025. I want to at least open up the opportunity for devil's advocate here. How aggressively should NC State pursue the number one quarterback in the country, knowing that you're already pretty committed to two quarterbacks, quote unquote, of the future that you feel extremely confident in their ability?
Extremely aggressively.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Grayson. Have you ever heard of Alabama saying, I'm not going to pursue this guy because we're committed to this other guy that's already here? Right. Have you ever heard Georgia saying that? Texas? Have you ever heard any of those schools saying, oh, we got too many corners, we can't use another one? Hell no. If a guy is special, you take him, period. And in this new era of college football, and the thing that I think a lot of people are discounting here, football is still football. It's still a violent sport. It's still a sport where if you only have one quarterback prepared to play, you are one play away from being your season ending, effective immediately, as we saw with the New York Jets last year. This is the reality of if you can keep at least two of these guys on the roster, and with the way that the timing works out, it should be fairly easy to work that thing out to where, if you are taking care of these guys and you give them the opportunity to play, you give them the opportunity to compete, may the best player win, may the best fit win, and that's not to say, hey, the guys who are second and third, get out of here. We don't want you around here. If y'all want to stay, please. I'm not mad at that at all. So, to me, I think that it's a fool's errand to say, I don't want to plan for this. I don't want to plan for a contingency of guys leaving at all, because as we saw last year, who could have predicted? Who could have predicted once Brennan Armstrong was sat down, who could have predicted that not only was MJ Morris going to redshirt, but that he was no longer going to be with the program after that? Who could have predicted it? This funny thing called life comes at you at the speed of life, and the road is not straight. It's all types of twists and turns and looping back around and all that. And you just got to go with it. You just got to roll with it, but you got to roll with it with the best pieces you got possible, which includes Mr. Brandon here.
Yeah, the reason I sort of open up that door is I feel like the common NC State fan will hear number one quarterback of the country, and then they'll see NC State at the end of that sentence, and they'll be like, yeah, no way. Not happening for us. When you have to go against the Michigans and the Oregons and the Texas and the whoever else, I get it. But if you're NC State and you feel like you have any kind of like real shot at the number one quarterback in the country, you take it. You take it every single time. And like Kenton mentioned there, that's not to discredit CJ Bailey or Will Wilson or any of the ability that we project them to have here at NC State. But a player of Faizon Brandon's caliber, if you can go get it, if you really think you can go get it, that's what you have to do. You have to increase the talent of your team by any means necessary. So the other side of that argument is for the folks that be like, well, there's just simply no way that we're going to land a guy like that. We need to be using all of our resources and time and energy to focus on other position groups.
Boo.
Yeah.
Boo. Not fine with me. I'm sorry to cut you off here, Grayson, but I'm a big believer. Why not us was a good slogan for basketball last year, because
I knew you're going here. Yeah.
Things didn't look like NC State was going to be in the tournament at all. You needed 5 games in 5 days. You needed a lot to happen. You needed to do a lot of things perfectly, in essence, to get where you were going. With all due respect, I said I only wanted to wear the white hat one time. I only want to be the hero that everybody's rooting for one time. With all due respect, nobody likes Bama winning anymore. Everybody was happy to see Georgia rise to power. Why? Because they got tired of Bama winning. And guess what's happening with Georgia now? Yep. Everybody's tired of them winning. And now they have – give me that damn black hat. Give it here. I don't want to have it's old hunky-dory NC State. Oh, it's old Moo you getting a good player. I want to have it as this is the new dynasty. This is the new team that people are just saying, Jesus Christ, can we please get somebody else to win the ACC? Can we please get somebody else to get a national championship? And it starts with guys like this. I want you to think about every dynasty for all of these schools. It starts with not just a good player. It starts with an amazing player staying home. Saban's dynasty at Alabama started by some young man named Julio something or another who stayed home, even though he was one of the biggest recruits in the world. And everybody's like, oh, you don't have to play there. I mean, this guy just came off a losing streak in the NFL, and all of a sudden they turn that thing around and they get it going at a higher level than we've ever seen before. If there is any moment Wolfpack fans stop believing, oh, we can't. Oh, it's not. Impossible is a small word that's made big by small people who don't believe in themselves. This is not impossible to land this top guy. It's not impossible to land all the top guys in the state of North Carolina. It's not impossible to build a fence around the state of North Carolina. And I'll tell you what, with what Dabo's doing down there in Clemson, maybe expand that bad baby out to South Carolina as well. It's not impossible. And I'll tell you what, with what we're seeing out of Pry and Elliott up there, expanded up to Virginia. Don't believe that it cannot be NC State. Believe it, claim it. Walk around with that energy of, we want the black hat. We want to be the team that everybody's like, we're tired of them already.
And like you mentioned, if NC State is to go win that ACC championship in Charlotte this December, you're going to find out that NC State can have nice things. This is not an impossible situation. He already has ties to our school. I believe he's on the books for an official visit this coming fall. He's going to see a home atmosphere, which you always want a recruit to see when they're considering NC State. In this new era of these younger guys coming to college and they want to play immediately, you cannot operate with the idea that virtually anybody is going to return to you next year. It is virtually all up in the air. So with that being said, you have to go look out for the best talent that you can go get. You have to shoot for the top. And if you can get a Faizon Brandon, the number one quarterback in the country, all the ammo you got to go after this guy. He's right down the street. You have all the resources you need to stay in constant contact with him. Be on him like white on rice. We need to have a legitimate shot at this guy because that's how you raise the floor of your program.
Absolutely. Well, we've raised the floor. It's time to raise the roof. It's time to raise that ceiling. Let's pump it up. Come on now. Let's do it. It's time. It's time. You know, we couldn't get Peyton Wilson. He was too good to come here. And other coaches were flying in on helicopters. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. We couldn't get Mario Williams. That was the number one player, I believe, overall in the nation, or somewhere number 5, number 2, somewhere up there. He was too good. We got him. I'm telling you, if this young man is interested in NC State should be extremely interested in him. We should. With all due respect to C.J. Bailey, with all due respect to Wilson, with all due respect to McCall, with all due respect to all the guys who've come along in the long line of what has made NC State QBU, it was not made that by saying, we're going to go one guy at a time. There'll be nobody here to push him. He'll be the guy, and that's all there is to it. No, absolutely not. If there's quarterback competition in that room, if we end up having one of the greatest quarterback rooms of all time, good. Love to see it. Let's go win something with them.
Speaking of raising the floor and the roof of a program, NC State basketball is headed out to Maui in 2025. More on that after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, that's the formula for winning championships. But it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, and LED headlights, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. That's because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Middle portion of our Wednesday show, now talking about NC State men's basketball with the announcement that they will be attending the Maui Invitational in 2025. In my opinion, this is the premier Feast Week tournament each and every year in college basketball. And I have wanted to see NC State in a tournament of this magnitude pretty much forever. I know we've gone to Atlantis a couple times, and that is a formidable tournament as well, but it doesn't quite stack up to the Maui Invitational because the Maui Invitational, they're bringing in the marquee names every year. And the other 7 schools that will be joining us for this tournament in 2025, so not this coming season, but the season after, the roster is Baylor, Oregon, Seton Hall, Texas, UNLV, USC, that's Southern Cal. The host is Chaminade, and then the NC State Wolfpack as well. We don't exactly know what kind of roster we'll be working with in 2025. We don't know what the other schools are going to be working with in 2025. Right. I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. I like our chances.
You know, here's the thing, right? I'm excited about the Maui Invitational. Don't get me wrong. Very excited to be going. I'm not at all, so I don't want the basketball gods to get upset and hear it. I want the Jimmy V. I
Okay.
want the Jimmy
You
V.
stole my thunder. I was going to get into that, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's the truth. You
Yeah.
are what? I'm sorry, but if there's any school that should be in the Jimmy V
Yes.
Invitational every year, I don't know. Maybe the school where he has a statue.
Yeah.
It seems kind of intuitive that would be the place. And yet, lo and behold, here we are, having to battle it out to potentially get in there every year and seemingly missing every year. Well, you have, as the kids would say, you have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
It's time. I'm ready to laugh. Grace is ready to laugh. Let's add NC State on in there because, again, this is something that makes a ton of sense. And, again, the Maui Invitational is great. This is not a tournament to be taken lightly. This is not a tournament that unserious programs get involved in. Because if you are unserious and you go to Maui, you will get run up off those courts. I am telling you, as sure as the sun rises on the east and sets on the west, you will have a very short trip to Maui. By the way, I've been to Maui. It's a beautiful place. I tell you, somebody picked a guava off a tree right in front of me and started eating. I said, oh my God, this is paradise. I am in the good place. I don't know what I've done to get here, but I'm in the good place. But in all seriousness, this is a situation where, again, a really solid moment for NC State to look forward to, a really solid selling point for recruiting. Just, all in all, what more could you possibly want than this, other than getting in the JV invitation as well? What more could you really want?
Now, I think these types of things are scheduled years out in advance, so I don't think we received the invitation because of going to the Final Four, but you couldn't ask for a better timeline of sequential events here because of, like Kenton just mentioned, recruiting, brand recognition, the eyeballs that you're going to get in an event like this. All of that is so huge to continue this momentum that just completely fell out of the sky and into our lap. And seriously, make no two ways about it. This is a big deal. And sure, it's November basketball. It's the beginning of the season. If NC State were to go out to Maui and win this type of tournament, that sets the tone for your season. A lot of times the teams that'll go out and win these types of tournaments early, they're already put on a track for receiving a high seed in the NCAA tournament. It's that instant momentum build that you can get so early in the season playing against other premier schools. So this is a big deal. I have killed to see NC State be in a tournament like this one. I can't believe we're now actually getting it. The last 3 months of NC State basketball have just been walking on a dream. It has been the most unbelievable series of events ever, and just another notch to add to the list. So I can't wait to see us play in Maui in 2025. Possibly a little bit of recruiting juice off of this, because who wouldn't want to play in Maui? I mean, if I'm a recruit and I'm on the fence about NC State and another school, but I know that NC State's going to Maui, listen, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but for someone like me, hey, I'll take a little vacation in November out to Hawaii. Who am I to say no to that? Last point on the Jimmy V Classic, because Kenton beat me to it. That is probably one of life's biggest mysteries for myself as an NC State fan. It is completely inexplicable that we are not in the Jimmy V Classic every single year. And I know probably the reason that we're not in it. And I've heard, oh, well, they have exams. Oh, they have scheduling conflicts, this, that, and the other. It's because we haven't been consistently good enough. Let's call it how it is.
Call a spade a spade.
If you are to continue this momentum and you turn in another good season this year, please, for the love of God, put us in the Jimmy V Classic. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, NC State needs to be one of the 4 schools in the Jimmy V Classic every single year. It's like the Cowboys and the Lions playing on Thanksgiving. That should never, ever, ever change. I know they've been rotating schools in the Jimmy V Classic just to get different eyes on different brands, but the biggest lasting impact that he had on any of these schools is NC State. Put us in the Jimmy V Classic. We're not asking, we're telling. Put us in there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I couldn't have said it better.
Coming up next, we're closing our episode by announcing no announcement from Frank Anselem-Ibe. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor of the day is Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, so that makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it. If you toggle their all-in pricing feature, it'll show your total up front with no surprises at checkout. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you're sitting down. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes all of the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, and again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Last couple of minutes here on Wednesday. Now talking about Frank Anselem-Ibe, the transfer center from Georgia that was supposed to announce his transfer decision on Tuesday. Now, full disclosure, Kent and I are recording this pretty late just in case he decided to release his decision sort of later into the night on Tuesday. It is 12:20 a.m. now on Wednesday. Still no decision, so I'm going to assume that he's not about to release it while we're asleep. So with that being said, he was supposed to announce his transfer decision on Tuesday and did not. What might this mean? Well, there was another transfer decision that may or may not be related to this one from Frank Anselem-Ibe. Now, walk with me here. Frank Anselem-Ibe, in his Final Four, Louisville was included. Kason Pryor, formerly of USF, committed to Louisville on Tuesday. Now, Pryor is a 6'10 forward who was going through the NBA draft process, but withdrew and now committed to Pat Kelsey and the Cards. Kenton, do you think that that decision may be related to the decision that we are waiting on, and perhaps Frank Anselem-Ibe has cold feet?
Oh, absolutely. Every domino affects another in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? It's the same way that Pharrell not getting paid for a beat in 2002 produced BBL Drizzy 22 years later. The reality is these two things are very closely connected because, I mean, when you're looking around and looking for a landing spot, you and I have talked about this a lot, Grayson. It's like musical chairs. And how does musical chairs work? You have to have a chair when the music stops. Now, imagine you're eyeing the chair. You got your eye on the prettiest chair in the spot. You just know that thing going to be comfortable. It got the little heated seats. You can recline it how you want to. And then all of a sudden, right as the music stops, somebody sits down in that chair that you were plotting on and hoping on and wishing on. What's your next move? What is your next thing to do? You know, you're kind of stuck you're kind of up the creek without a paddle. So that decision absolutely can weigh on not only Anselem-Ibe's decision, but also how the roster comes together going forward for NC State.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because I saw a lot of insiders for Louisville. They were under the impression they had a very good shot at landing Frank Anselem-Ibe, even though he never went on a visit to Louisville, which is interesting, I guess, to say the least. So it wouldn't exactly surprise me if the two decisions here are related. But now for NC State, it's just more of sitting here with the coffee like SpongeBob, and you're waiting to hear something. Because you also have Ezra Source still somewhere out there in the nether, still waiting to hear his type of decision after he went on a visit to Utah. No word one way or another on that either. It's kind of an antsy situation to find yourself in. You really thought that you might have the roster finalized on Tuesday. Maybe now we're going to hear today on Wednesday. Who's really to say at this point? But will Frank Anselem-Ibe announce on Wednesday? Will he wait till Thursday? Will it even happen this week? We don't quite know yet. Still waiting on more pins and needles to get this roster finalized.
I don't believe in waiting on pins and needles. Good things don't come to those who wait. They come to those who make them happen. If these guys don't want to commit, don't let grass grow under your feet, Kevin. Go get them. Go get you somebody that you want. Because, again, you do not want to be stuck having to pick, these are all the guys who they didn't quite get a D1 offer. They didn't quite get a P4 offer. They didn't quite this kid was supposed to be at a D2 school, but I guess he'll do. He's 6'10". Don't you let that happen again. You better go out there and get you a definitive ball player immediately.
Something else to consider here. Now, I mentioned Kason Pryor, who was in the NBA draft process but withdrew himself and then committed to Louisville. Perhaps Kevin Keats could run across somebody else that was in the process, takes themselves out, and now all of a sudden they're looking for a new home via the transfer portal. So perhaps you could have somebody else fall into your lap that would be of interest while we're still kind of waiting around for these two to figure their situations out. But no word on Tuesday. Perhaps we will get word here on Wednesday. Obviously, if we hear anything, we will let you know. But until then, that will do it for us here on Wednesday. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you think about NC State football pursuing the number one quarterback in the country for the 2026 class. Tell us what you think about NC State men's hoops headed out to Maui in 2025. Maybe if you're going to make the trip out there for Feast Week, let us know in the comments. And let us know what you think may or may not be going on now with Frank Anselem-Ibe's transfer decision. Anything else you have on your mind, drop it down in the comment box. We'll be sure to get to each and every one of those. And mash that subscribe button. We are now just 15 subscribers away from 2,000 on YouTube. Incredible. We will see you all tomorrow. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.